So the new season of Cosmic Disclosure started, and I was not paying attention because I've been a little distracted. And I didn't think it would start right away when the last one finished. But there's been 2 episodes so far, and something extremely, I don't know if I want to say disturbing or interesting has happened in the first episode, and it involves Charlottesville. So I'm going to let this play for just a few minutes, and then when they get to the graphic where they're talking about underground bases, I'm going to turn the phone to look at it.
Right.
So when you say there's about 300 of these facilities
Just
that
in
you're
North
aware
America.
of, what would be kind of an average benchmark of what you are thinking that means? What are those facilities of the 300? What would they be like? How big are they? How many people do they hold?
Right. There's many different facilities with many different types of populations in them, and they all have a different agenda. And there's some that are larger, like the ones in New Mexico, Nevada, and Colorado, that actually house entire cities, and you never even have to go to the surface. They also have full running hospitals and whatnot for this elite group. As far as the laboratories and all the testing going on there with nuclear and other types of energies, because it's not all just medical, of course. There's other things going down there, as Corey can also relate to, working on different types of devices, such as different types of vehicles, number one, space vehicles, also the medical stuff I talked to you about in the last episodes, with all the storing of cloned bodies and whatnot. So there are a lot of these facilities that house many different types of projects. And then there are some that are only for specific types of projects, because it's so compartmentalized. They'll make a whole underground base just for one project.
Wow.
And they'll keep that, with the population usually under about 200 people, so they can control them.
So Emery, I know you probably can't tell us the names of the bases that you went to or where they were located, maybe some, but can you tell us the number and how they were different, as well as what it was like going into the bases?
Yeah, sure. Basically, there's around 300 of these bases in the United States that I'm aware of. Some of the ones I've been to are in El Paso, Texas, under UTEP. Of course, everyone knows about the one I've been in Los Alamos and currently Air Force Base. Another one would be in Charlottesville, Virginia. There's another one in Denver. Of course, Dulce, you know about. And there's one in White Sands, under White Sands National Monument. Also in Crestone, underneath the sand dunes, which they're trying to now
Charlottesville, Virginia.
What about in Canada? Are you
Oh my
familiar
God.
with there?
So let me see. I have to move forward to like 14 minutes into it, because they start talking about I think it's thorium as a energy source, and there's enough of it located on the planet that would power everything in the entire solar system indefinitely. And so, God, I'm so angry. Well, I mean, I'm anticipating that this stuff is going to come out into the open, and the sooner the better, because we're dying up here. Okay, starting it up again. Where they're going to talk about the power source.
For a very long time, to have these views and to have the organic state material of gardens inside these things.
Full spectrum lighting.
And full spectrum lighting, and the things that we normally have here outside, they try to replicate inside. And it seems to lower the stress levels of the scientists and the technicians that are working there.
Yeah, let's go with that, because one of the things that Pete Peterson reported to me was this idea that you might have a very large dome underground in which there is a city with buildings and roads and trees, and
Right.
it really, and they even have the dome lit so it looks like the sky.
Yeah, the dome
They do
is really
starlight.
cool.
They do stars at
They
night.
do. You have your own 24-hour, like you said, the day and night situations. They can make it look like a hurricane's coming too,
Wow.
with clouds and all sorts of amazing sci-fi effects that are very realistic as far as the lighting goes and the way it makes you feel like you're looking into infinity.
I'm curious, were any of these spaces that you went to, were they in national parks?
Yes. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We've heard tale, and you and I have seen doors that will just open up out of the side of a mountain.
Right.
And they completely,
Yes.
that you could never tell that there was anything there. You could go there do sonic tests. You would never know that there
You
was a
can't
door
even
there.
find it with a metal detector.
Right.
And this is like a giant rock, like you just said, will open up, and it's completely sealed and pressurized out of the side of a mountain. And we were talking about this earlier, Corey. Even in the desert, like I always remember watching the desert open up, like you said, which you can explain
Like a zipper.
like a
Yeah.
zipper.
The ground.
And then the sand starts falling in. I'm always like, who's cleaning up all that
Right.
sand? You know, but they have a special thing.
Yeah,
that
it
just-
drains through those.
just collects
yeah.
it right out and shoots it back out once the door shuts, shoots it back on top of that. Another type of base that I don't get into too much, up in the North Pole, in the polar ice caps. There's bases in polar ice caps.
Mhm.
And they are magnificently beautiful, number one. And they somehow have their own atmosphere in there with perfect running water and their own, their own electricity they make using the earth. Because they're already very, very deep.
Are you talking like geothermal?
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Are these and some of them also use the thorium type
Thorium,
reactors?
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So
I've heard a lot
That's a
about
big
thorium.
one. Thorium's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So they-
basically a non-radioactive fusion system.
Well, what's interesting is that in a lot of my presentations, I've been showing footage from Project Iceworm. It was a project by the Army Corps of Engineers, and I think it was the late 50s, early 60s in Greenland. They went in and they set up one of these bases. And basically, the same type of building was done down in Antarctica as well. And planes would come and land and provide them the supplies. But this is also how they've built a lot of off-world bases.
Right.
This same method. But Project Iceworm is very interesting because later on, the United States tried to smuggle some nuclear weapons there, and the plane crashed, and everyone found out about this huge base that was secretly built.
Just so you guys are aware of this, one of the things that Pete Peterson told me was that the World Book Encyclopedia in 1953, I think was the year, that the military-industrial complex sent people all over libraries to rip out this one page because it had something in there talking about how thorium could be a reaction that would produce almost no radiation. And he said that if we started to use this, that we would have this incredible breakthrough in technology. So what do you guys know about thorium as it relates to our discussion?
Well, I know that in the programs, the craft that the research vessel I was assigned to, originally it was nuclear, and then they replaced it with a thorium-based, and then they replaced it with some sort of an electromagnetic engine that had these long tubes that they would put something in that they called minnow baskets that would spin. And if you move it up and down, you get a little bit of play in the electromagnetics.
Right.
And I think it's some sort of electromagnetic friction that's going around, and these leads are picking up the energy and shooting it wirelessly through the tubes, which then go directly to these huge capacitors.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, a lot of capacitors are used on these bases to hold the energy. I'm not an expert at thorium, but I was recently on a project where a private organization, a private corporation, hired me to. They sent out people all over the United States to find a scientific team to find the largest deposit of thorium here in the United States. And I know exactly where that's at. And that is also in New Mexico. I'm not going to tell you the city. It's located here, but I'll tell you it's in New Mexico. And there's an unlimited amount of thorium there that could power all the planets and all the bases, and of course us right here indefinitely. So, I mean, with the amount of energy we already currently use.
So why do you think, Emery, there would be a base in a national park? What would be the advantage to that?
Oh, the advantage of that is, number one, it's completely monitored all the time. You always have, park rangers around. So it's like you have your own little civilian operatives out there. And of course, they're just cluttered with satellites and stuff that are, watching them, watching the area, I mean. So these areas also sometimes have a great usage to them because they're near maybe a underground thermal
Right.
or something, and they're harvesting this energy. Or maybe it has a huge crystalline formation, under some of these parks and stuff. So the parks, even in early days, were actually picked out to hide military bases.
Yeah, what was interesting is Clifford Mahooty, when we had him here talking, said that reservations, Indian reservations, and these bases and national parks have the same classification with the government.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying, because it's limited traffic or it's controlled traffic. Even on the reservations, like, you're not even allowed to go on a reservation. You understand, unless you have, special passes and whatnot with the chiefs. And what happens is that's a perfect ideal place that's never going to have a lot of traffic or a lot of investigation, because we're using an area that we already gave to, the American Indians. So.
Right. I was interesting.
There's also a part where they talk about how they can create holograms through satellites and some kind of big trucks that they can locate, and they I guess triangulate so that they can make things look like they're solid and real, and they actually do something with the atomic structure. The planes that went into the towers. Anyway, it's all going to come out eventually. And it's really hard to wait for all this information to come out. And I am really tired of the naysayers and the people that are just the trolls that, are saying all the, it's not true, it's like a kid's impossible, it's blah, blah, blah. Well, who is it I was watching? William Tompkins, when he was talking about how all of the science that we know is false. Everything that we have been taught about science is not true. And even Einstein was trying to find parts of his equations, and he couldn't find them because he was working from information that was not complete. And then this physicist that I have posted, what's his name? He's for some reason I can't remember his name, but anyway, I posted a couple of his things, and he actually solved the Einstein equations that hadn't been solved. Nassim Haramein, and he has not been recognized by the mainstream physicists because he does not have a degree. He's self-taught. He's intuitive. He's had contact with aliens. He's like, he was here to be the person that basically brings this information out, and for the ears that can hear and the eyes that can see, his artistic demonstrations of the nature of reality. Anyway, that's as much as I can say about that right now, because I'm at the end of my video.